All right. Hey, everybody. How's it going? If you're watching right now, could you let me know if you can hear me? All right. Hey, we've got a couple people joining, and so thanks for jumping on, everybody. It's tomorrow from Primal Hacker, and I have some odd news for you. I can't find Thaddeus Primal Hacker. So he went berry picking with his friends. I love how macho my husband is. And he was supposed to be home a couple hours ago, and it's just not like him to not show up for something and not be in contact with me. He's really respectful, and he's such an amazing human. And I have to say, I'm a little like, where is he? And he doesn't take his cell phone because he's Thaddeus Primal Hacker, and we carry our phones in Faraday pouches and all of that stuff. So there's, it's kind of hard to call him, but at this point, I'm just getting a little nervous about like, where did he go and why isn't he home yet? So I just wanted to come on and be brutally honest with you guys. And we're going to have to postpone the live. I can go through a few things what we were hoping to talk about, but I am a little distracted because, as some of you know who have perhaps teenage children or loved ones that don't show up on time when their normal like modus operandi is to show up on time, and they don't, we start getting a little distracted. So thank you for joining and tuning in to this live stream. And I am going to just talk a little bit about what we were going to talk about, and then I'm going to let you guys go so I can keep following up with some of the people he was with and see if I can't track him down a little bit. And then perhaps I'll put up another notice on YouTube and the Dr. Shivambu channel and make some notices on Instagram if we decide to continue the live stream tonight, or if we postpone it to another day and another time. So if you are watching, I am super happy that you're tuning in. Thank you so much. And again, if you just joined us right now, Thaddeus Primal Hacker is MIA. It's not like him, you guys, so I can be a little bit lighthearted about it. But to be honest, I am just a little bit worried about him, and it's not like him to not show up. So thank you, Michelle, for sending the love. I super appreciate that. And he's not like missing. He's just like, he's never not on time. So I'm going to, assume good intent, put into practice some of the things that I've been learning lately. And one of the things from a past relationship that with my ex-husband, I started assuming not good intent a lot with relationships, and that never served me. So it is a traumatic thing for me to be in this position, and I'll just be vulnerable. And it's not easy when somebody doesn't show up, right? But Thaddeus is absolutely a man of integrity, and he's amazing, and he's an amazing human, an amazing husband. So I will keep you guys posted. And I even wore my pretty dress for him. Aw, that's okay. So if you guys could all just send some love, and I'm going to hold out for maybe, 4 more minutes. I'll give them like 10 minutes, and we'll see where things are at. So anybody joining from the Dr. Shivambu channel or Golden Girls channel, those are all Shivambu channels that we're on. And I apologize if you're just joining. I'll say it again. We're having a hard time finding him. So that's the issue when you know that cell phone radiation is not good for you. He won't pick up his phone in the car, and carries it in a Faraday pouch. So, yeah. All right. So we are going to actually have a really cool conversation, you guys, about, well, we will be having, let me rephrase that. We will be having a really great conversation talking about raw vegan. Thank you for your B. Thank you. Contrasting and comparing a raw vegan diet with a carnivore, because it's like constantly something Thaddeus and I go back and forth on. And do we eat meat? Do we not eat meat? And of course, the more we learn about the urine therapy and Shivambu people are more or less fruitarians. And then Thaddeus and I keep having these great conversations that keep unfolding. And I'm like, but wait a minute. When we were down at the pyramids in Florida, we hosted a retreat there last April. And I was juicing for 3 of the 5 days we were there. And I felt so strong. And I don't know, like we were living in a pyramid. Like, does that have anything to do with it? Or I don't know, because I have O positive blood type. And usually like eating meat makes me feel stronger and just makes me, feel a little bit more like energetic and whatever. So we were just like going to go through like, what is it with the raw vegans versus the carnivores? Is it somewhere in between? And just talk around that subject. And then Patrick Flanagan came up. I'm just watching the chat. Your skin looks lovely. You're truly itched. Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. Sovereignty. I don't know. Sovereignty. Yeah, I'm just kidding. Thank you so much. I just took a bath and I did a facial clay mask. So and I have some good lighting on. Lighting is key, you guys. It's really important, especially when you're on video. If I had a light shining from the side, like you would see some lines in my face. And so I take those precautions. But thank you, I appreciate that. And I also put a lot of urine on my face, especially every morning and every night before I go to bed. That's a secret. Like all the models know this, but well, maybe old school models. Anyway, I was going to get back to Patrick Flanagan real quick. So Patrick Flanagan is this like super crazy dude that he put out a book called Pyramid Power. Thaddeus and I read it a couple years ago. And then, oh, the dog is getting excited. That means that we might have a Thaddeus on hand. He's here. Are you here? Yeah. He's here, you guys. Oh my God. Yay. See, assume good intent. It works. Come on.
Coming.
Where have you been? Everybody's waiting for you.
Not speeding to get here.
You were not speeding to get here? You guys, he made it. Isn't that exciting? We don't have to postpone. Yay. Your link is in your Zoom. Come here, give me a hug and a kiss and say hi to everybody. Okay, he's ghosting into the abyss. He's gonna go jump on. So whoo, we get to talk about Patrick Flanagan. Babe, are you good? You guys get to see this in real life, right? Oh, thanks, B. This is exciting. Oh, okay. Well, when you have a really amazing husband and he is never late, he's actually always early, and then he's like, oh, not here for his own interview. I got a little nervous. So, okay. That's my past trauma kicking in, right? That's just like past bullshit. So I changed my energy and I was able to exit disastrous relationships. And I was really working on myself, you guys. And then, like after you work on yourself for a while, you start changing your light and your energy. And then you bring in other people's energy that are amazing and that match yours, right? That's the energetic property. I'm just going to admit Thaddeus. And oh my God, I brought Thaddeus into my world. So I'm a lucky girl. Okay, here we go. We can only see your eyebrows, darling. There he is. Are you going to put a background on?
I just got on.
I'm like, let's go.
Okay.
Everybody's rooting for you. They're like, yay, Thaddeus.
Background. Let's see. I'm usually in Microsoft Teams. So let's see. How do I put a background in here?
And I forgot my microphone and you're all mic'd up. I better I better get on here. I was all like, where's my husband?
This is not allowing me to put a background on.
Oh, really?
There's no option for, let's see, share screen, record, reactions, chat,
No,
participants.
go down to video where it says stop video.
Huh?
Click on that little arrow.
Oh, I see.
Go down to video settings.
Got it.
Look at me like guiding Thaddeus on the tech, you guys. That's leadership.
Oh, that's pretty
With
good.
Shayla, if you watch this, I know she'll be like, woo. That's a big thing at HCL is like figuring out your tech and leadership. So, all right, we found Thaddeus, everyone. Let's get let's get comfortable. Hopefully you have a cup of tea. I have a cup of Podarco today. Do you guys know about Podarco? Podarco, I don't know how you ever say it, is it's actually the tagline for Podarco. It's a bark from Peru and Brazil. I think it's a couple different countries it's harvested in. They take the bark off the Podarco tree. There's a few different strains of it, but it's for anything that bothers you. So I was like, oh, I'm going to go pour myself a cup of Podarco and relax a little bit. Okay. Are you getting there, TDO?
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Yes.
What's your problem? Are you picking something or what?
Yeah.
You're trying to find one? Just pick something or blur it. Come on. People are waiting.
Okay. Done.
Oh my God. You're so crazy. There's Heidi on the ladder. Looks like you're trying to get me in the cold plunge. That's a very distracting and strange pick, by the way.
There we go. Well, that's not even us. I can't see it until it comes up.
Okay, babe, you're already late. Like,
I know. So
let's hear the story. Does everybody want to hear the story, you guys? It's like reality TV, Thaddeus, and everybody.
So I was at our friend's house in northern Wisconsin, and they just moved onto this piece of property, and it is 80 acres. It's super beautiful property. It's pretty amazing. And I was picking berries with a couple other friends who joined us, Jesse and Anthony.
Okay, hold on right there. Isn't that awesome that the men are out picking berries? I just love that. Okay, go ahead.
So we were picking berries, and we were checking out just like the little berry orchard and talking through like what the berries were, because like Jim and Jerry don't even know what all the berries they have are. So like, are these black currants or what are these things? And so we were looking at that kind of stuff. Anyway, about a couple hours, we picked berries, and then had like, I didn't know this, but Sherry and Denise brought food. So they had like a whole meal. And I was like, oh, if I knew there was like a potluck, I would have brought some food to share. So we had a little meal, and then Jim's like, hey, I want to show you the property. And it poured. It was like pouring rain.
Yeah.
And then it totally let up. And we were putting in a well for Jim. So Jim's like trying to put in a well by hand. So Ed, Jim, and I are trying to pound a pipe into the ground to get to water this little like 1-inch pipe.
Okay.
I didn't know that's how you make a well, is like literally you hand like pound something deep in the ground, this pipe. So anyway, we're trying to do that. So Jim's like, let's take a break. I'm going to show you the property. I was like, okay, I've got a half hour and then I have to leave. So he's like, let's get on the four-wheelers. So we got on these four-wheelers and we started driving around the property, just Jim and I. And it is huge. Like it was like miles. We're like driving back, and there's
were you like tapping him on the shoulder, like, excuse me, Mr. Four-wheeler driver, we got somewhere to go?
I know. We each had our own four-wheelers. So,
okay.
So I was kind of following him.
I was picturing you on the back of his four-wheeler.
That's what I thought we were going to do. And then he's like, no, we'll just take two. And I was like, oh, perfect. I don't have to like hug on to Jim.
Oh Oh my God. Okay, continue.
So this property is beautiful. There's like this huge birch forest, and then there's a bunch of other, and he's got bears. There were bears out there.
What?
Yeah, there were bears, and there we saw a buck with a huge rack, like not very far from us, and all sorts of, like, there was a little swamp, and it is amazing. Like, it's very hard to describe how beautiful their property is.
Awesome.
So we were just like driving through on a loop until we got back. And then we got back, and then I said goodbye, and then I drove, and it's pretty far up there. So it was further away than I thought. I thought it would take me an hour, and I think it took an hour and a half.
Okay.
To get there. So
did you speed on the way home?
Yes. I was driving 80 and a 55. So but I was being very safe.
Coming from Mr. Safety, that's where you're just like, I got to get back to get on our podcast.
Well, I was like, oh man, I hope I said 4:30 and not 4 o'clock, but I'm like, I'm sure it was 4 o'clock. So I better get home. So here I am.
Well, I am so glad that you made it back safely, and sounds like you guys had a really good time. I'm gonna press record because we have 9-10 people on that are joining us, and they're probably like, what the fuck are they talking about? Okay, so here we go. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Pool Party Podcast. I'm your host, Tomorrow. Today, we have Thaddeus. I was calling you on all of the promos that I was doing today. I was calling you the spiritual truth gangster. What do you think of that title?
I don't know that I deserve that title.
Really? Spiritual truth gangster?
Yeah, that seems like it makes me more spiritual than I feel like I could live up to at this point in time.
Oh, come on. I thought it was really fitting.
Maybe that feels like a little bit of pressure.
Oh, well, I thought it was cool. Maybe everybody on YouTube Live can tell us if they like that title. Where did you go again, Thaddeus? We're in a podcast. You guys, okay, welcome to the podcast. And this is reality TV with Thaddeus and Tomorrow, apparently. All right. So today we're going to talk about raw vegan versus carnivore while Thaddeus gets his overalls and suspenders on. And we're going to talk about pyramids. We're going to talk about Patrick Flanagan. We're going to talk about Russia. We're going to talk about vegan cats or vegetarian cats. I don't know what's happening. It was better without the light, babe.
It was.
Yeah. We're going to talk about primal man versus Atlantean, inverted rainbows, signs and symbols. I snuck that one in. So Thaddeus, are you listening?
Signs and symbols.
Okay. So I snuck that in. I want you to talk about the inverted rainbow, and then information. This whole talk started with I was like, we need to have a information video. And I'm just like looking at the creepy light on your face.
I'm trying. It's so dark out right now because of the rain. I was trying to get a light, but I'm thinking it's maybe not going to work.
Can you turn it off so I can see what it looks like without? Because I'm the aesthetics connoisseur here. If you guys are just joining us, I don't know. It's crazy either way because you got the sun blaring in on one side, but that's okay. It makes me look prettier. I'm just kidding.
Here, I'll put on red light. There
you go. Do that. So I was telling everybody before, I was like, I don't know where he is, and he's normally not late. And I have past trauma about this. My, ex-husband was always late. So, or just actually never showed up. So I was saying that I would assume good intent and send you good vibes and just more love. And I was really vulnerable at the beginning of this podcast. And I don't know, it's interesting to see how things just keep evolving, and I don't know. I'm so thankful that you're here, and I want to share your vast knowledge of these topics on the podcast. So I'll stop getting sentimental. Are you going to get sentimental now?
No.
Why? Who's in the chair? Know. Who's in the chair behind you?
That's a really good question. I don't even know where that is. I think it's Michael.
This is the.
Isn't that Cove Point?
Oh yeah, maybe. Michelangelo, if you're listening, you're on Thaddeus's background. You made it. And I was telling everybody too, I'm like, I even put, this is like when I was like all sad and all alone on the podcast, on the YouTube live. I was like, I even
Is
put
your podcast called Sad and Alone? That's awful. I'm sorry.
No, but I was like, I even put on a pretty dress for him, and like, and I was like, he's not here. I called with Shayla and I was like, what should I do? She's like, leadership, go on and just be vulnerable. So it was fun. Okay. 9 people that are watching. We're done with that. We're going to move into this. I think, do you want to start right out with the raw vegan versus carnivore, or do you want to start off with, the information piece? Like that's our original idea, was to start off with the information in the sun.
Wow. We're really like jumping into it. Let's just jump into raw vegan versus carnivore diet.
Okay.
And then we'll get into the
game show.
We're going to soften people up.
Yeah. So I'm like spinning. Okay. Do you want to start with?
I'll take raw vegan and carnivore for $100. All right. So
well, thank you, Sovereignty. Sovereignty is like telling me my skin looks pretty. My dress is pretty.
Oh my gosh. You do look very pretty, baby.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
And I'm just in from the forest, and I've got my hat on and I'm all sweaty and wet, and I was digging a hole for a well.
And I was like in the bathtub. I had my pee goggles on. I made a video. We've got people on from Dr. Shivambu channel. Hopefully they joined us. They said my link took them to some Australian site, but I clicked it and it came right to the YouTube site. So
wow. Well, if you're on here from there, I just had a really good conversation while I was picking berries with somebody that met Heidi and started practicing. And they've solved like some major issues to where the people they live with even noticed that some issues were solved. And they're like, hey, I noticed that the scar on your eye is healed up now. Are you doing some kind of aged thing? And he's like, yes. So he's read like 2 or 3 books now after meeting you, and has been practicing and having really good success. So
awesome. We
just had that conversation out in the forest field.
That's so awesome. I know. Like the more we practice Shivambu, urine therapy, you guys, the more you get to talk to people about it, the more stories you get feedback from. It's so amazing. All the profound. Honestly, I was having some issues with my eyes today. I've been on the computer a lot. So I went in the bathtub and I put my pee goggles on, and I feel like my eyes are just brighter. I can see better. It's amazing. And I was like, in my video, I was like, you guys, this, if you do the pee goggles, it'll be the second time you've done it. Right? Right?
Well, sure.
Let me hear it. Yes. Thaddeus, tell him what I mean.
Well, you wouldn't have had goggles on, but as you developed in the womb, you would have been swimming in mostly your mother's and then your urine.
Wait, I think is mother's?
Yeah, I think originally it's some of your mom's.
Oh, really?
That gets filtered into there. Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting.
And then it's aged because it's there for days and weeks.
Yeah. So just so many, and I've had small healings, all the way to profound, huge healings with it. And so has like a plethora of people that we know that started it. And I'm just really excited about it. So then I'm really good at enrolling people. That's how this podcast came about, by the way. So, okay. Back to raw vegan and carnivore.
Okay. So we were discussing yesterday this concept, and it was interesting because I thought about it again today, and someone else made another comment about it. Matt Maruka recently kind of had something to say about it as well, which was
really
funny. Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting.
So I was listening to this podcast, which I know none of you listening, and even if you're listening to this in like a month from now and there's 10,000 views, you haven't seen this podcast. So I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and I was talking to Tomorrow about it. And in the podcast, our friend Yoni and Matt were talking, and Matt said, look, and it's not Matt Maruka, different Matt. So okay. Matt, he says, ancient people, the Mongols, like when Genghis Khan, or Genghis Khan, however you want to say it, if you believe he existed, when he was kind of taking over this huge land in Tartaria or China, wherever you want to believe that he was taking over land and dominating people, his warriors were like really strong and they were amazing athletes and they had really like high bone density and they were like wiping out these little farming villages. And so supposedly these Chinese scholars who were writing about what was happening were saying like the bone density and the muscle mass of these warriors was so much higher than the farmers, and it made them these like incredible warriors, and they were able to take over like all this land and all these people. And the claim was that they were carnivore. And so the carnivore was what was claimed by Matt and others to make them these extreme warriors. And so it's like, wow, so isn't the carnivore diet great? And the way that we determined that it's great is that it made these really strong, high bone density people that were really angry and militant and slaughtering other people. So if we look at it from that angle, I was thinking like, well, why do we say that because these people were strong and had high bone density and they were carnivore, why do we think that that's necessarily good? So as we were talking, we said like, well, does being carnivore and really strong, does that give you a longer life? Does it give you longevity? Because people want longevity. They want to live a long time per se to experience lots of things. So just because they're strong and have high bone density, does that mean that they live longer? Well, that was the first question. And the second question I don't think anybody is answering is, okay, so they've got really big muscles and they're really high bone density and they're really good at killing people, but are they healthy? So we start looking around us at people that are carnivore today. And we've got a really good friend who was just on the podcast and he's carnivore.
Nick Sahaski. Everybody go back and watch that video. It was really fun.
And we've got other people that we know that are carnivore, and you can find like all these big carnivore people on, social media, should you choose to follow them. And one of the things Matt Maruka just brought up is like on a Luke Story podcast, interestingly, because I'm driving, I was listening to this podcast as we were going to talk about this. And it's like, if you're on this carnivore diet and you think that you're solving health issues with it, like I feel so amazing, I solved all these health issues, I don't have any anymore. But if I eat a blueberry or some salad, my body freaks out and I get an autoimmune and like plants are trying to kill me attitude. And all I can eat is carnivore and I have to be super strict. So if you solved your health issue, why is it that when you eat a blueberry or some salad, your body freaks out on you? Does that equate to like actually solving the problem? So
are you limiting yourself, right? Are you putting yourself in like a box of like, I can only do this and now I have to be dogmatic about this thing?
So now you're not so resilient because you've got to eat just meat.
Okay.
And if you don't have any meat to eat and you're fasting, and I love Nick, but I will tell you that we went on a canoe trip into the Boundary Waters and Nick was carnivore during this time and he couldn't get enough meat to eat. So he fasted. And then when he got meat, he would just eat the meat and he crashed on that trip. His energy was low. His sleep was bad. He was struggling keeping up with the paddling and the portaging, and he had to like essentially break down and eat some carbs. And I'm not sure that was ideal because his body was so used to just eating meat that, again, when you structure a diet and you think that is your savior, is the diet, and it's not actually solving your health problem, it's kind of hiding it. So he had some trouble because he was so restricted to just eating meat. His body needed some carbohydrates for the amount of work that we were putting in and portaging and canoeing into the wilderness.
Yeah.
But he kind of refused to what do you say? Like he refused to see that and to kind of allow himself the freedom to eat some different food.
And I think his attitude has completely changed on that because I know he does now add some of those things back into his diet.
Yeah.
And he also, you guys, wasn't doing urine therapy other than just like a little bit here and there at that time. And I think that perhaps if he would have maybe been looping a little bit more or doing, more urine, he probably wouldn't have been in that bad of shape. I don't know. That's the
But-
theory. I don't want to find out.
So I think like, I think the loop, to close the loop on carnivore before we go to raw vegan, is like, is it the right diet and is it the best diet? And I think,
Wait, Thaddeus, hold on. You kind of look like Darth Vader.
I
Your
know,
hat is
it's-
like not going in the.
I have to take the hat off. Now, this
let me
red
see.
light though is not
I think-
helpful.
I don't know.
I think I need actual light.
You look like a floating head guy. It's super weird.
It is. I need some better light.
What's going on over there? You think
I think
you're
it's actually getting darker is what's happening.
It is. It definitely is. And we, you guys, we don't have a lot of light in our house. We don't have any light in our living room. And there's his office is off the living room. We only have one fan light in our like couch area room with our fireplace. Otherwise, we have like a whole nother living room beyond that. No lighting fixtures at all. And then none in his office, like other than like our own our own lights that we put up, but they're usually red. So that's okay, babe. I was a little distracted too, because Jesse was trying to call and he was like, "Did you find Thaddeus?" He was all worried.
Yeah, I was just with
What is
Jesse.
urine
So.
looping? Oh, while Thaddeus still fucking around, Sovereignty is asking, what is urine looping? So urine looping is, so when you drink your first morning urine and then whatever time passes, you drink the next one and then you drink the next one and it just gets like more filtered. It's already ultra filtered, it's actually plasma, not even really urine. And that's better. That is. And so every time you loop Sovereignty, it becomes just a little bit more palatable, people think, and more watery. It tastes a little more like coconut water just because it becomes more filtered and easier, I think, to drink. But I personally like them first morning because I know like this is what I actually taste like without being watered down. That's the watered down version of you. Your early morning is actually the hologram of what you are, because it's all the stuff you've been like replenishing throughout the entire night. So that's actually a more accurate description of what you are in your plasma. So anyway, and I know throughout the whole day, like I loop pretty much until 11 or 1 o'clock. And I know exactly how hydrated I am. I know, like, yeah, it's really interesting. I know what I ate. I know what I'm eating. I make better choices when I'm grabbing fruit and just making smoothies. Padarko. Okay. Thaddeus, you're on.
So closing out the carnivore.
Yeah.
It would be, so have you actually solved a health issue by going carnivore if eating a blueberry is going to kill you? Probably not. So you've eliminated some of the reactions to foods by limiting your food to one type, just protein from an animal. And you've then eliminated so many different food types. And when you go back to eating them, your body freaks out. That's not solving the health issue. So then we go to the opposite extreme. So if everyone knows carnivore, right, is eating just protein, just meat. So not even plant protein, just meat from dead animals. And then you go to the opposite extreme, which is the raw veganism. And so people say, well, raw veganism is the way to go and you'll feel amazing when you do it. And I think for a short time, many people do, because it's almost like an elimination diet. You're eating, I was
just going to say that.
You're eating foods that are super high in enzymes, living enzymes. So you're eating living food, which I actually do think is a really great thing. And what we've noticed, and so I used to be vegan, I've been vegetarian, but in that vegan community, and if you look at the raw vegans that maybe you know, and definitely the ones that we know, like they don't look the healthiest and they don't necessarily look robust. And they tend to have also health challenges that they're struggling with and working on. And so again, the question becomes like, is being a raw vegan, does it extend your lifespan? And in some cases it does seem to. Does it extend your health span? Does it make you healthier? Like being fit doesn't mean you're healthy. And living a long time also doesn't mean you're healthy.
Right.
And so you've got these extremes of like super muscular, eating a lot of meat and high bone density to lower bone density. very thin, sometimes anorexic looking raw vegan lifestyle. And I totally understand the lifestyle of wanting to be or choosing to be raw vegan, that you do not want to kill another life form to become food for you to survive. I totally get that, and I resonate with that. And you want to eat living foods. So, right, you're not wanting to kill an animal, but you'll take apple or an orange that's given to you from nature. It gives you this thing from its tree, or you pick a part of that plant from the ground and the rest of it continues to grow. So you're not killing the whole organism, and you consume that living energy and information. Like, I really resonate and I like that. But then when I look at the people practicing it, they don't look that healthy to me.
Well, and there's other people that we know that are practicing it, but we haven't seen them. So we don't really know. So like, this was our table conversation last night, you guys. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Because we eat meat, and I don't eat a lot of meat, but probably a little bit each day, and anything between chicken and beef or whatever. And like, I know where my energy is, but when we were down in the pyramids, this is where the pyramid thing came in. Thaddeus and I both had really, really high energy. I mean, we were leading a retreat, but we were only juicing, and we had no meat. But we were in the sunlight. And that's the other thing. Like, what's this key of like, is there a sunlight component? And I think that absolutely is correct, like in my opinion. But we were in so much sunlight because we were in Florida, and we live in Wisconsin, and we don't get a lot of sunlight here. So like, what's the difference? Like, was it because, and we were also sleeping in a pyramid, which was really interesting. So, like, where's the threshold, and like how, and I think too, like the extremes, right? Like, there's a thing like the middle path, like where are these things in the middle? Like, where do they come to the middle? And I know there's a lot of people that talk about astrology. They talk about the middle path, what's is it the narrow gate, or what's the
narrow gate?
Yeah. So like, maybe that's the same for, our food. And I personally have been just listening to more of my intuition lately. And so like, that's my little tagline for my podcast. And it says, eat what makes you feel good. And that doesn't mean like Doritos are going to make you feel good. They're not. They're going to make you feel like shit. And they're full of like really, really bad stuff. But what makes you like be so in touch with your body that what makes it feel good. Right. So I don't know, like, can you apply some of that?
Well, so I want to close out the loop on the carnivore versus raw vegan.
Okay.
And then I would like to talk about potentially what's going on there. So number one is, like, we talked about, could you be a raw vegan but look like someone who is following a carnivore diet? Like, could you look at different body styles. So like, for instance, you look at the body style of someone who's like an extreme marathon runner, and typically, like, honestly, they're either anorexic looking or they're overweight. Like, that's kind of the ultra marathon runner aesthetic, which is weird. But it's because when you run that far, your body needs more nutrition. So it builds fat inside your muscle tissue to have enough fuel to keep you going. So it selects for the body style that is like a little more overweight. And then you look at a sprinter, and they look ripped, but they're not running as much and they're not working out as much, because the way that the body changes to converge to that adapted lifestyle is one to build bigger muscles and use more sugar, essentially. And the raw vegan versus carnivore, there's this thing of like, eating this lifestyle without any thought tends to move your body in a certain direction of looks and aesthetic, as well as physiology and bone density in the anatomy. But could you like be a raw vegan but look like the carnivore, where you've got high bone density, you look the way you want to look, and you look full of vitality and health? And that's what should happen no matter what diet you follow.
Right.
Like, whatever diet you're following, you should be in robust health, and you should glow, right? And so we were thinking like, well, why would that be? Is it really just the diet? Or is it two things? Is it, number one, inner emotional issues that you've never dealt with. And that's causing the energetic blockages and the health issues you have. And you have to deal with those before any diet is going to solve anything. So you should be able to eat anything and really thrive. And therefore, if you can eat anything and thrive, you can then eat the diet that resonates with your energy state at the time. So let's just say I have solved these inner emotional issues. So I'm free of dis-ease. Like I can eat anything I want and I'm going to look exactly the way I want. I'm going to glow with health and I'm going to utilize all the information in that food I put in my body to feed that information into my own physiology and make it the optimal that it can be. Doesn't matter what I eat, that's what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Then I can eat, let's say, raw vegan, so I don't have to harm, if that's my belief, I don't have to harm any life. I'm getting living enzymes and I'm kind of living off this higher energetic prana that the world gives us. And I don't have that dense emotional energy from the meat and the blood I'm consuming. Right. So that might be something I want to do, but if I go into it without first doing the inner work that needs to happen, then I'm not going to get out of it what I want.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a person that we know from Instagram who lives in Barbados, and he's a raw vegan and he's like super ripped, but he works out all day long. He's a trainer. So like, I mean, how much of that? And then, so like, I think, you know, part of the things that, or one of the things that I heard you say is like, what is the epitome of health, right? And does it, just because you have a bunch of muscle, does that mean you're more dense? Like as the yogis say, then you're more 3D, you're more dense on this planet. And, you know, then does density come into the picture? And like, there's just all these things, right? And I don't know.
So if you wanted to, well, I think that's a good point. So if you wanted to be a conqueror and a warrior and like killing other people to take over their land and to be more enmeshed in the 3D world and all the density that's going on, you would eat the dense adrenochrome filled foods, which would be carnivore diet essentially. And that will make you into this warrior that's more in tune with killing and higher muscle density, higher bone density type of body. That's one of the perspectives you could have on it all. And then there could also be the peaceful warrior where you are providing food for your family. There's an abundance of fauna in your environment and they're going to die in the winter because there's too many of them. So you selectively and peacefully take from that herd and feed your family with that meat and intentionally incorporate that meat into your body in a different kind of warrior lifestyle. And in addition, you take the other foods from the environment. So is it like the middle path where you're taking the high prana foods that are closest to the sun, the highest source of information on this matrix that we live in, and you're taking some of the denser foods that are a lower vibrational density, and you incorporate all of those into your body in a very purposeful way so that whatever you're taking and putting into yourself is more intentional instead of just what we do today. It seems intentional because we are like, I'm going to be carnivore or I'm going to be Mediterranean diet, but the food that you actually put into your mouth, there's no intention behind where did it come from? How was it processed? Who processed it? What were they thinking about when they cut the meat or they harvested the vegetable and washed it and put it into the packaging? That's all informational energy that embeds itself into that food. And then you have to decode that when you eat it. So honestly, I think you need to do your own inner emotional work first, and then you can be more choosy, more intentional about the foods that you go out and put into your body. Mm-hmm. And with the intention you have when preparing and eating them, your body will form the state that you intend it to have.
You know, so like it actually brings up a really good point, Thaddeus. So like I feel that the more self-love you have, it seems kind of an encompassing statement, like the more self-love, the more self-worth that you feel, you probably reach for healthier foods. And I can like think about somebody who's reaching, for a Arby's roast beef sandwich, and, no, I don't want to sound, like whatever, but it doesn't seem like they've done like what you're saying, the emotional work, and like feel filled up from the inside. Does that make sense?
Most people, I mean, if you're
Yeah.
some Sat Indian
Right.
Yogananda guru living in the mountains and you come in and you eat an Arby's roast beef sandwich, it's going to be a different experience than most people going to fast food, waiting in
For
those
sure.
long lines. And that's kind of the majority of their diet.
For sure. Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. Okay. So, what do you, where are you at with like the primal man? Like what would primal man have eaten? Like, do you want to even go there? Because I have primal man versus Atlantean written down here.
So this was one of the other things we were just talking about. And it was weird because it came up in the Matt Maruka podcast, and we had just talked about it and hadn't listened to the podcast, but it was like, we think of these Atlantean beings, and whether they're real or not, like they could be an allegory or some sort of a structure, or they could have been real, right? And we think of them as like these high energetic beings that could communicate telepathically, and they had this deep understanding of ancient technologies, or you could say future technologies to us. Mm-hmm. And they probably, if we imagine them, they probably weren't killing innocent animals and eating their flesh. They were probably like eating sunlight and living off pure water, and possibly like forming relationships with the trees and eating the abundance all around them from the trees that were given freely to them. And then they existed kind of like in the same time period in people's minds as primal man. There's like this primal man, and if you believe in how this worked, like our biology was kind of created by how primal man lived on the land, and what primal man and woman ate dictated who we became biologically today. So then I think about like, well, how do I like balance this primitive primal man with Atlantean man and woman? And like they really occurred, if you think about the historical narrative, at the same time.
Right.
And or else there was this fall, and then you've got primal man. So let's just say there was either a fall of an Atlantean type society or the Garden of Eden into primal man, or there was nothing and you're an atheist and a nihilist, and there was nothing and there was a big bang explosion and primal man comes on the scene after billions of years of evolution. So why do we, as the more evolved being from primal man, want to go backwards? As the primal hacker, I say this.
I was just going to say that.
Why do we want to go backwards in our evolution, or into our descendants? We call ourselves the descendants of our ancestors, but descending is like you're going down. We don't want to be the ones that are lowered.
Yeah.
We don't want to be the descendants. We want to be the ascendants. We want to elevate every generation. So why would we want to devolve ourselves backwards in time to eat what primal man ate, if we are moving forward into the Aquarian age and accelerating our connection to source and information? We probably don't want to mimic what they ate.
Thaddeus, what if the sun is changing and it's changing the way it grows plants and animals, and and we're moving further away from that, and we're moving like more toward, like what you're saying, higher reaching foods that are toward the sun?
Well, we need to talk more about the sun and the information, but yes,
sorry.
That, right? So like, I've completely changed my mind. Like I still have friends and they're just like, well, I don't know about this urine therapy. Did primal man do it? And if he did, then I'm going to do it. And it's like, well, I mean, yes, primal man did it. Okay, let's just get that. If you believe the fake history, then yes, the Romans, the Greeks, the Chinese, every culture has a practice of this.
If you believe history.
And so we don't believe history anymore, because even even historians know that history is like rewritten and rewritten and rewritten, and anyone's history, whether it's a Native American telling history or a white guy telling history, has been changed so many times that no one knows what's true anymore, like unless it was last year. And even then there's questions unless you directly experienced it. You can't believe what you see on the news of what happened. So unless you experienced it, there is no history. And for all we know, we woke up today and it's the first day of our life, and these are all implanted memories from every day of our life prior to this. So who knows? But that means, like, who cares what primal man did necessarily? Because we're not primal man. We don't live connected to the earth anyway. No matter what we're going to do, we can't go back. We can't remove the microwave frequencies from our air. Like,
Right.
You will never do that, no matter where you live. You will never remove the radio signals, the television signals, the UHF, the VHF, if you're old enough to remember UHF and VHF on your TV.
Whoa.
Those are still in the air, and they were
Really?
not in the air for primal man.
Huh.
And so we are already in an environment that we can never go back to that lifestyle. Therefore, we probably shouldn't be eating what they ate, because what was right for them at that time is not right for us in this time. So that's kind of my new thought.
Yeah.
And as we were talking through this, we were like, well, why wouldn't we want to mimic, let's just say, the concept of the Atlanteans, if that's the state we want to reach? If we want to reach like caveman state and go backwards, then maybe we should be mimicking the caveman, as I wear my primal t-shirt here.
You're kind of contradictory today, Thaddeus.
So, I mean,
Hold on. I just want to make a really quick point, you guys. So notice how Thaddeus is not dogmatic about, like, this is something I'm grabbing onto and I'm not going to let go of it, no matter how you pry it from my cold, dead fingers, right? But seriously, we're constantly learning new things. And that's, I mean, that's what we're going to get to today, is like the sun is giving us new information, but we're always flexing and we're flowing with information as well. And it's like, what worked for me yesterday might not work for me today, and my ego does not have to be involved in it in any way, shape, or form, right? So I think it's really honorable that you have your flat earth hat on, you have your primal shirt on, and right?
I love this hat. So if you're listening and you can't see my hat because you're listening to the podcast,
oh yeah,
I have a hat on that says level, and it shows a circle, and it shows the water as level. Okay. Now I call it my flat earth hat, and this is actually the irony
funny.
is that this hat was given to me by an industry association for the furniture industry. And they have product sustainability standards. So, like, let's make really sustainable products. And the product sustainability standard is called level. And they made a hat that they gave to all the executives in the furniture industry, and it says level, and it's got this level, basically flat. It is basically like a flat earth hat, and they had no idea that's what they were making.
No idea.
And so I wear this all the time, and I'm like, I love this flat earth hat, and it's totally not what it was designed for.
But the designer got the download from the sun, right, to make the hat.
Exactly. So there's like all this crazy stuff happening in the world, and people who are considered conspiracy theorists are like, there's a group of them of like, it's all these evil people and this cabal, and like these people in charge are doing it. And there's this other group of, I would call them not conspiracy theorists. We're going to call them James True's word of like awakening new shaman. And so we can see things that other people can't, just like our friend Washayla can see ET beings that talk to her, and she can be seeing them in the same room, and I would see nothing. She has more of her aperture open to see those beings and talk to them. We conspiracy theorists, let's call ourselves, have more of our aperture open to see things that other people can't, which makes us kind of newbie shaman. And we're kind of becoming the neo shaman in this digital world.
Maybe you should introduce James True really quickly.
So
kind of really,
So James True, I just mentioned, that's where I got the concept from, because I follow a lot of, or used to follow a lot of people, and they make ideas their own, yet their ideas are copied from someone else, and they never tell you who they copied from. And you're like, hey, how do I find out more about this? And they'll never tell you. So if I get something from somebody, I like to acknowledge where I got it, and I help build that deeper, or present it in a way that other people can understand, where the way it was originally presented is harder to understand. Or I just want to call your attention to, like, hey, go follow this person. They've got some really neat ideas. So James True is somebody I was introduced to from the Crow 777 radio podcast. And I started, tomorrow, and I started following a lot of his work. And so he's like at James True on YouTube, Rockfin, and he's got a website as well. He's an artist.
Wait, what's the Rockfin part? I just typed in YouTube James True, but what?
Rockfin is just like YouTube, but it's less.
Oh, okay.
Less censorship.
And Washayla just chimed in and she said, yes, they do show up.
So he describes, he's describing two things that we're going to describe during this podcast because it's so fascinating. One is the black sun, and our current sun today, which, as most of you should have noticed, I hope by now, that the sun we have today is not the same sun that existed when we were kids. And listen to any song, look at anyone's paintings and drawings from when they were kids in the 70s and 80s, and the sun was yellow. The sun now is clearly white and much harder to look at than in the past. There's also some other anomalies, but James True is describing what's happening with the sun right now. And this idea that he describes blew my mind, and I love it. And so going back, he describes on the neo-shamanism that shamans are people that can see things others can't. And that's why usually they're lonely. People are afraid of them. They're, they find it hard to relate to what they're seeing to other people, because no matter how they describe it or how to like turn your vision to see what they're seeing, you can't see it. So the way James True describes that concept physiologically is that melanin, which is what turns our skin dark and gives us a tan, melanin also exists in every cell of our body, inside where the sun never reaches. So why would melanin be there? So his idea is that this melanin closes or opens the aperture of your experience. So everything we're seeing through our eyes, that we're smelling, tasting, and touching, or hearing, all of that is first seen by the pineal. All we're seeing is pure information. There's no trees, there's no walls around us. It's just invisible information and energy, right? If you look at like even a scientific standpoint, at the very base level, these walls around us are mostly empty space. And if we look deep enough, that empty space is filled with a couple of electrons and some atoms that you should easily be able to pass your hand through. So the way we think of them as a wall is our pineal reads the information, and there's an energetic field there to read, and it shows it to us as a dense wall that we can't go through, and it paints it a certain color. We can see that. Our aperture is open enough to see that information, but our pineal saw it first. Our eyes see it sometime afterwards, and it tells us how it feels. It gives us something that's familiar. So if there's something around us like an ET being or other information, all these things are just information, but they come in different forms. So let's just say this information is coming and trying to tell us something, and it's in an ET form. And if we see it, we will freak out, and we'll be like a fainting goat and fall over. Our nervous system can't handle it. Like we'll just be like, oh my God, I can't take it, overload, right?
Well, Shayla, was that how it happened in the beginning?
She did. I fell over on the side. So what happens is your body already, your pineal, your energetic system, your spiritual you has already seen it, has already decoded it, already knows what that information is, already understands the information, but it can't tell you because you aren't ready. So it takes melanin and it closes some of that aperture so that information does not ever enter your consciousness, your waking consciousness. It closes it. So it's there, it's really there, but you can't see it because you're not ready. But Washayla can see it. She's ready, and she's not going to freak out. She's like, I'm not going to freak out if some being comes and talks to me. So she's allowed to see it. The melanin doesn't cover that area for her because
I think it used to freak her out. I think it used to freak her out.
But now her system, it knew that she would be able to figure it out, right? So
they had faith in you, Washayla.
So therefore, the more that we relax and allow, the more we will be shown because we're ready for it and we're not going to freak out. But that means if I take someone else and I'm trying to be like, look, like there's 100% no way the earth is rotating at 5,000 miles per hour. And I can prove to you scientifically, like literally the speed of sound is 500 miles an hour, 500, and it's not bound by gravity. The earth is spinning at 5,000 miles per hour or 1,000 miles per hour, whatever you want. It's faster than the speed of sound. So if the earth is moving away from me and you're standing away from me and I talk in your direction and you're spinning away from me 1,000 miles per hour, there's 100% no way my voice would ever reach you, ever. Because it's moving away, you're moving away at 1,000 miles per hour. My voice is only traveling at 500 miles an hour, speed of sound, could never catch up. Right. So I can see that. I'm like, oh my God. So I don't know if the earth is rotating or not, but it's not rotating at the speed they say. And I could tell that to a scientist or someone, and they won't see it. They won't even understand the argument because no matter how much you try to show them, their brain and their consciousness is not ready to say to themselves, everything I've ever been taught is a lie. It is untrue. They're not ready for that. And when they're ready to hear that, they'll start seeing other things. And so the whole thing about like, I just want everyone to see what I see and I want to show them this. And why can't they see it? It's because they literally can't see it. Like you're not going to convince them.
Yeah. And that's okay. Like, cause everybody's on their own journey and it's not one is better than the other or wrong or right or anything. That's duality and whatever, like that judgment. We don't do that. Everybody's here to have this experience and some see a little, some see a lot. Like we're all in this mix together. Right.
So I love that from Fortunes de Saint Germain, where he says, everybody is an ascending master. Not everyone is an ascended master. So when you look at somebody, they will be an ascended master. They're an ascending master currently, and everyone is at a different part of that journey. And your goal is not to bring them to a different part of the ascension process than they are ready for. When they are ready, they find the next steps and the next teacher, and they are always ascending. Everyone here is ascending, and we're all at different stages of progressing.
So then have we been descending then? And now we're on this, because I feel like I've seen that elliptical of like.
So that was described to us by Washayla. Like I had never heard this part, but Washayla was saying, yes, you ascend all the way back to, let's say, source. And you're like oneness with everything. And there's no light, there's no dark. There's like, everything is everything. And then you're like, well, I kind of want to experience things again. And so you descend yourself back into the lowest density and you get to re-experience these things all over again that you can't really experience at other levels. So the thought is like, it's the cyclical re-experiencing everything that is possible to experience. So like we think about sometimes people that are unfortunate, let's just say like, oh my God, this person like had their arm cut off when they were 3 years old. And like, that is like the worst thing. I feel so sorry for that person. But yet that person maybe agreed, like, I'm the spiritual being and I want to know what it feels like to have my arm cut off in density. Like, I want that experience. So like, as crazy as that may sound, like maybe that's something that they chose to experience in this version of life. And if you are that person, you know, maybe that makes you feel like, oh, I shouldn't feel such a victim. I should feel like, okay, like this is what this means. This is how I experienced life with this thing that happened to me. So I think we all can take that thought in mind in our own circumstance in life. And like, you don't need to be somewhere else on your journey. You need to be exactly where you are and relax into it and fully experience it because you chose to be here in this circumstance so that you could experience it, because as you ascend, you can no longer experience that part of the journey.
Right. That just brought in some Ram Dass, like be here now. You're here, like, so be here, right? Like be present. Yeah, that was awesome. Thaddeus, I want to touch on a couple of Washayla questions. So she said, could the sun seeming to be brighter and lighter be an effect of our atmosphere changing?
You know what, that just made me, I thought she was going to ask a different question. I thought what you were going to say, what Shayla said was, could the sun being brighter and the fact that we notice it, but other people don't, be that as we open our aperture more, we're able to see more information from the sun, we're able to absorb more information, so it looks brighter to us, where other people that are scared and fearful, it's like, no, this is like this dull yellow thing in the sky, because they're not open to the information from it. Okay, so that's not our question, but I was like, I thought that's what you were going to ask.
Okay, so wait, could it be an effect of our atmosphere changing?
Yeah, so absolutely. Like we 100% factually know that we're spraying.
Wait, is that a climate change question with Shayla?
The climate is changing, and
it always changes.
It has always been changing. The climate means change in temperature over time. So like the climate always changes, it always has. Now, like, I think what man is trying to do is like, man is trying to make believe.
Thaddeus, do we need to have a hobo code for that word?
No.
Okay.
Not right now. Okay. Because I'm not like saying, I'm not denying climate change.
I see. Okay.
Climate does change. It's always been changing,
but
I think
the AI can't read facial gesticulations.
I think what man is doing is saying climate change is bad. If the climate changes, it's uncomfortable for man. I don't want the climate to change. Therefore, I will geoengineer this earth so that I go against nature and don't allow the climate to change. And they're using the argument that humans are making the climate change to allow us to accept the geoengineering of stopping the climate change. So yes, humans are changing the climate, of course. Are we changing it more than the sun is changing the climate, or that the geological cycles are changing it? That's up for debate. And I would say that man just wants to live in this little narrow band and never have it change. So conditions are perfect for man to do what man wants to do. And if conditions change too much, man gets uncomfortable, man wants to fix it, man tries to change the climate.
It's man and woman, man and child, and all sorts of beings.
So Greta Thunberg wants to change the climate. She doesn't want to accept that the climate has always changed and that it might get uncomfortable for her as it continues to change. And therefore she wants to modify the climate with man-made solutions. And when has woman's or man's meddling with nature made things better when we don't know what we're doing? So all the geoengineering that we're trying to do to solve climate change, I am convinced that it's going to make things worse. Now, we know we're seeding the skies with things.
Wait, did you answer with Shayla's question?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We're seeding the skies with metallic particles because military communications work better when the upper atmosphere is metallicized, because it transfers information faster. So we know, and it's not a secret, that we're spraying metal particles in the air. Some people are like, oh, these are chemtrails and they're awful and they're harming us. I don't know that anyone knows what they're doing, but we do know one thing they're doing is making metal ions stay suspended in the atmosphere, because military communication and satellite imagery, whether you believe the satellites are on balloons or actually in space, which that would be impossible. They're probably just sitting on balloons, but there still are satellites. They can see.
Doesn't believe in space, you guys.
I believe in space. I just don't believe we've ever been to space.
Oh, really? I thought you were like,
there's something out there. I can see it. Okay. I can see the stars. I can see the night sky, and I know there's stuff there, but I don't believe man has been up there and landed on the moon. No.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay. So, yes, we're changing the atmosphere and we're changing the climate because of that. And does that have something to do with the change in the sun? I honestly think, based on what I know today, that no, that's not what's changing the color of the sun. So we get into like the black hole sun and the informational matrix of this description that like blew my mind on the sun, if you want.
Yeah.
And why I think that it's not the climate that's changing.
Can you talk about black hole sun?
Well, there's this concept in lots of occult circles, and occult just means hidden, doesn't mean bad. Hidden, occult, look up the term. And people associate with nefarious and black arts. But the black sun, there's like these two concepts of the black sun. And one is that the earth is hollow. It doesn't mean the earth isn't round. It doesn't mean the earth isn't a sphere. It doesn't mean the earth isn't flat, but the earth can still be hollow. There can still be shit inside the earth, right? It's okay to believe that and still be a scientist or an engineer. So some people believe that this like concept of the hollow earth contains a black sun, and that it's inside the earth, and it is responsible for the northern lights and the magnetic fields and all these other things.
Oh,
and
that's what the black sun is?
that's one concept.
Oh, one concept. Okay. So is it the North Pole?
Yes.
Okay.
So the North Pole is the opening to the hollow earth where you find the black sun. Okay, so that's one. So that's one concept of the black sun. And there was a division of the Nazi military. They were called like the Black Sun or the Black something, and they like did all this stuff around the black sun. So very occult, like all the Nazi stuff was super occult, and like really crazy if you start looking into like some of the stuff they were doing. So this other concept of the black sun is that it is in the sky in the same exact area as the sun. And you don't see it because it's black. And there's so much light coming out of this black emanation that all you see is the light from it. So the concept, let me go back to like an easier concept to understand. So we're on these computers and this information is passing to you and us from the computer. How does that information get through? Like, how does it move? It moves through light, electrons or energy or photons. They're all the same thing. Everything's light, everything is energy. So it's moving through cords. Like it can move through the air, through microwaves, a short distance, not very far. Okay. Mostly it's moving through these Ethernet cords. The Ethernet cords are connected to the microwave towers. Then they're connected to these central servers, and then we connect to them through our landline. And it's this cord, and it releases, as that energy, that information passes through the cord to your computer, there's energy released. And there's like, you can measure it. You can measure like millivolts of energy coming off the Ethernet cord. And as more data goes through the cord, more energy is released. So we are receiving this information into our eyes, into our consciousness, into our brains, into our bodies from the computer server. We can search on Google and get an answer instantaneously, and we can like absorb all this information on the internet. And the theory is that all the information that's ever been on the internet ever is like a trickle in the ocean compared to the information coming from the sun. So if you imagine that the sun is actually black and it's a cord connecting source, God, heaven, consciousness, source consciousness. It is the cord connecting that consciousness to the matrix that we live in. That's the black sun. It's a black Ethernet cord full of information, and there's so much information coming through that cord that it blazes so bright that the light will burn you if you stay out of that sunlight naked for 5 hours. That's how much information is being passed into our matrix every millisecond from the black sun. And what we're seeing visually, the visible light, is the flare from that information passing into our realm. So if you open yourself to the information coming from the black sun, you open that aperture, you start to take in more information. You no longer have to go to the internet to get your instantaneous answers. What some of the theories are is that the internet, the Googles of the world, giving us instantaneous information, allowing us to connect to somebody, or like 150 years ago, if you said, I could look at somebody in China through this black scrying mirror and talk to them in real time, that's magic. So what
people maybe don't know what black scrying mirror means.
Look down at your phone.
There you go.
Okay. Turn off your computer monitor, and what color is it? It's black mirror. And usually black mirrors are for black magic. And it could have been white. Could have been white magic, but they didn't make those devices white screens, did they?
Somebody wants to know if the black sun is or the sun is a portal too.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. it is. And that's not my specialty. But I would definitely say yes.
Would you say it was Shayla's specialty?
I think she's more expert in that area than I would be. If you don't know
So
what Shayla, was ShaylaSananda.com.
I already have it on the chat. Yeah, Sovereignty. Go check out with Shayla's podcast too, you guys. It's really good. Okay.
Alchemy of Ascension. So that's what Shayla's podcast name. And so what this internet technology, like I can get an instantaneous answer, like from Google. Now, just think about this. When I type in like a song lyric or a sentence, that sentence might be contained on one website out of the 50 billion websites with 1,000 trillion words on them. You really think that Google in less than a second has searched every one of those sites for that sentence I put out there and immediately found it and shown me which website it was actually on? That's almost impossible to do. Technologically, that is impossible to do. You can't get an instantaneous answer from Google and have it search every website that has ever existed, every page of every website, and find that exact quote and tell me what page it's on. That is impossible. So this technology that we're using, what the theory is it's just getting us ready to get rid of the technology and say, we've always been able to do this instantaneous answer and response and instantaneous communication to somebody around the world without any of the technology. The technology is the bridge to make us feel safe and make us feel like it's the technology and it's this chip in here that's allowing me to do this magical thing. Well, like if you really think about the fact that like somehow there's this magic thing in your hand and it's this chip that's like smaller than a human hair that is feeding this information to you and digitally rendering the person's facial expressions and their voice all around from 1,000,000 miles away, whatever, 8,000 miles away. That in itself is impossible. So it's just making us feel comfortable that there's a scientific explanation for us to be able to communicate with each other and get an instantaneous answer from the universe and from the information all around us.
It's so fascinating, but
or it's stopping us from knowing we have that power and relying on someone else to tell us what we can and can't do with that power. You can only talk for an hour before your battery runs out, and then you can't talk to that person around the world. I'm sorry, there's no more battery. So now you're under the control of someone else's idea of what you get to see and not see.
Yeah, I was telling Thaddeus a story earlier, was it yesterday? I reached out to somebody and I was like, hey, are you going to do a replay of that meditation? And she's like, Intuitive is a new friend of mine from one of the Golden Girls, like Urine Therapy channel on Telegram. And she's like, yeah, but I don't do replays because if you just tune in, she's like, you'll get the download. She's like, we used to communicate like that. And she just was so matter of fact about it. I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. Like, I'll just tune in. I have something else going on at that time, but she's like, just put it on your calendar and then connect to it and you'll get what you need from it. And I was like, I love that. I was like, Thaddeus, check this out. So, I mean, there's so much we don't know, right? Like we don't know anything. And this information, all of it is so fascinating, all these different theories. And like, what do you guys believe? What do you guys think? Michelle Ashley just put like mind blow.
I would challenge you on that. We don't know anything. I think, think from a like what's out there in the world, we've been put in these little boxes and we've been programmed our whole lives to believe that we only know a ton about this stuff and that there isn't anything outside of there. And what we're finding is there's everything outside that box. So
we know everything.
And we do know it. We do know it. We have to remember it. So we have forgotten all of these things as we descended ourselves to become the descendants of our ancestors. And we have put these blinders on and we've birthed ourselves into this world without memory. We birthed ourselves with amnesia. So we do know it. Our cells, our body, our organs remember everything. And the information that's coming from that black sun Ethernet cable into our matrix is putting the information out there for us to take advantage of. And I think what we're doing is we're remembering how to know all of those things. So we do know them, we have to remember them, and we have to remember the ways of accessing them.
Absolutely. That's so awesome. Okay, let's move over to, I really want to talk about Patrick Flanagan and the inverted rainbow and Hunza water.
Oh my God, it's like
I'm just going to keep going. Look at that.
Okay.
It's like, oh dear God.
Let's go with inverted rainbow first.
You want to do inverted rainbow first? Okay.
Yeah,
let me just make sure I don't have any other. Where Shayla said one other thing, could it be light, the sun as an effect of our atmosphere changing rather than a different sun? We didn't quite cover that, but is that something? I mean, that's kind of neither here nor there, or do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, it definitely could be. The atmosphere changed the sun, but the issue is like,
or is there two suns? Is that what she's saying? I thought that's
no, she's saying is the sun really a different sun in the sky, or is the sun just looking different because of climate change?
Oh, I see. Okay.
And I would say the sun is brighter and more intense.
Mm-hmm.
And the theory is that it's brighter and more intense because more information is that. Why are so many people awakening right now? Why are we moving into the age of Aquarius and people are waking up, and there's something called the Great Awakening? It's because more and more information is coming into our world. And if more information comes in, the sun has to get brighter and give off more energy.
Whoa. So that would make sense of why, like, the trails of things in the sky, like that would make sense of why they would maybe want to block that, right?
The chemical tails of chemicals.
Chemical tails. That's our friend Matt McKinley. So that's Quantum of Conscience YouTube channel, you guys. If you don't know Matt McKinley, and it's conscience as in science, not actually conscience. He's a really good person to follow if you're into this stuff and you like hearing about truth channels. Yeah. So, and then, hey, Thaddeus, really quick, back to the James True. The last episode that you listened to, and it had that cable and it looked like the same cable as your spinal column. Is that one of his last episodes? Just so we can tell people where to find that. Cause I think that's
one of the last 3.
Okay. It's one of his most recent, I should say. So if you guys are interested in learning,
it's called Soul versus Spirit, I think.
Soul versus Spirit. Okay. So James True, and he's got some really, so Thaddeus talks about all this stuff. And so James put it in a graphic and he kind of shows you the coaxial cable, and James has a really quirky personality. He's freaking hilarious. He's awesome. We love listening to his channel. Just because he's really like pushing even the extreme, I don't know, how do you explain him? He's really out there, but it makes sense. It's fascinating. So anyway, so Quantum of Conscience, Matt McKinley, and then James True, Crow 777 Radio were the ones we've mentioned. I always want to give resources that these are the people that we follow, and this is where a lot of information comes in. Thaddeus takes all those information centers, you guys, and Saint Germain, Fortune de Saint Germain, and all these, spiritual ascended masters, alchemists, and puts it all together, and then, forms opinions around that. So it's really cool. So
that, and then Jordan from Waters Above Crypto.
We'll get there.
So yeah. And then talking with people like Yoni and Washayla in person.
I thought you were going to say talking with people like you. You're like Yoni.
We talk all the time.
I know.
Tomorrow. So of course that's how we got on this podcast, is we were talking through these ideas and bouncing things off each other. But as I integrate all these things throughout a year and come up with these insights, and then we get to meet we do this mastermind once a year with a group of friends. We rent a really big house and we all come together in Florida and spend a week together in this community, and we all share things and then discuss ideas together and kind of like rebuild for the year coming up. And so I get to talk to Washayla, and I get to talk to Yoni, and I get to hear people like Levi and our friends who also are entrepreneurs and like coming up with like ways to be in this world. And we get to bounce these things off of each other and grow together. So it's really cool.
And what's really cool too is like we all go out on the rooftop and we get morning light together. So we're all bathing in that information together, like as a unified, force. I don't know. It's really special. And Shayla always comes up with like some new cool meditation that we're doing up there, or Thaddeus is leading movement. And it's just, it's really great meeting of the minds. Primal flow. Let's go. It's amazing how the light has changed. It went from this like dark clouds to bright sunlight. Now it's all hazy. Okay. Where were we? Inverted rainbow. So we're going to go. Okay, so now we're going to talk about Lavette. So it's another person she's a sidereal astrologer?
She's an alchemist, but she teaches a lot around astrology and how events in the world are astrologically aligned, and that you can predict events based on the astrology, and that they all work off some sort of astrology. So whether some people are like, the elite are using astrology to create events, and other people that once they learn enough, they're like, no, the world, the matrix we live in is run off astrology and alchemy, and the events occur on those dates, regardless of people planning them or not. So whether they're planned or not, that's how they have to and when they have to occur. But if you're aware of those things, you'll know that certain key dates and timing and events that happen in the sky above us. So if you're like a person that follows the Bible, you have read in the Bible that the Lord gave us the stars above us to allow us to have information and know where we are, what time it is on the planet, and what is about to occur. They are there for you to navigate this matrix. So
because they've never changed, right? I mean, the stars have always been like where they are since the beginning.
yeah, if you believe modern science, which again, like no one should have to put a sign in the yard saying, I believe in science. If it was universally accepted that science is real or true, you wouldn't have to say that it's real. That's like the dead giveaway that it's not real. Anyway,
we love just giggling about that.
so if we're going to do a series, and it's going to be called Everything is Opposite, and it's going to be, you guys, it's going to be so much fun. It's going to be like, science is real, and we're like, okay, science isn't real, and we're going to show you how, and we're going to say like, you go to school to learn things, and it's like, you go to school to be told lies. And then it's gonna be like, the Federal Reserve is a branch of the federal government. Oh wait, it's a private corporation and it's not part of the government. And then we're gonna like do all these things like that feed off of everything is the opposite. Like, you have to wear sunglasses out in the sun. No, wait, you don't want to wear sunglasses out in the sun, and that's actually healthier. So I think it's going to be a fun series for us to do, like the Everything is Opposite series.
So
and
that would be fun. Did you just come up with that?
So when I was talking with Levi at the last mastermind, and he's like, you need to do a toxic series. And remember, I was thinking like, I need to do an Everything is Opposite series. So I have this whole list I've been compiling for the last year.
Okay.
On like, what have we been told that is the opposite? So that's what I wanted to do a series on. And then
that would be really fun. Hey, just to make sure, like, we do have a strike, so make sure if you need to say anything, hobo code.
So far, I'm good.
Okay. I trust you know what to say and what you can't say.
Yeah, we're good so far.
Because I'm really enjoying doing the YouTube lives and seeing people chime in and talk and stuff, and I don't want to lose that.
Well, so what we were saying about the stars being in the same place is like, supposedly, like according to science and NASA, that we're in a galaxy living on a planet, and the planet's spinning at 1,000 miles per hour, as the Milky Way galaxy also rotates at a faster speed. And we're tunneling through space at 1,000,000 miles an hour as the galaxy expands. And if that were the case, that all these things are spinning and moving, and then the stars we see above us today would not have been the same stars that you would have seen 10,000 years ago above you. It would be impossible. Yet, when we look at the drawings and the astrology and astronomy of the star positions 10,000 years ago, they're the same as they are today, exactly the same. And that would be impossible.
Fascinating.
So that's like another just like idea of like, what are we living in? What is this place?
We're living on the back of the turtle.
The back of the turtle. So it's all in your head, the macrocosm and the microcosm. So your head is the dome and the firmament, and the spinal column is Jacob's ladder. You have to climb to ascend to heaven, which is in the mind. And
that's astrotheology he's talking about, you guys. That's Santos Bonelli.
Yeah.
Santos.
That's lots of people look at the Bible as astrotheological. So you can look at it literally, you can read it figuratively for allegories, or you can look at it as a astrological and an astronomical guidebook to our realm.
Yeah.
All of them, none of those negate the fact, if you want to believe in like the Christian God, they all still support that. So anyway,
Oh, I was going to say one other thing about the back of the turtle. If you haven't read Braiding Sweetgrass, that's a really good book to find out a little bit more about the Native American take on the turtle, back of the turtle. And there's some really good stories, and it's really beautifully written. So go ahead.
Or Sir, who's the guy that wrote the Discworld series, Sir Terry Pratchett.
Oh, only Michelangelo, who's listening right now, but he can't come in and say hi because he doesn't have his own account or something. So Michael.
So Sir Terry Pratchett describes it as turtles all the way down.
Oh, really?
The world is on the back of a turtle. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's cool.
There's more than one theory of turtles
right.
up the world.
I was just thinking of the Braiding Sweetgrass. Hey, Sovereignty said, have you ever listened to The Dark Journalist?
Yes.
And they do follow Matt, and they love, he's like, it's really good to listen to different points of view, which it's so true. You can't live in a vacuum. So
I honestly only listen to The Dark Journalist when he's got Catherine Austin Fitts on, because I trained with Catherine when she got out of prison back in like 2000.
Did you guys do the convict conditioning?
We did. Yeah,
sorry, that was a bad pun. If you guys don't know Catherine Austin Fitts is, just give a quick.
Just Google it. Search.
Google it. Well, yeah, but give your take. Just give it 2 sentences.
She worked for the Bush administration as the housing secretary, and she learned that they were basically going into poor areas of cities and driving crime to extremes so that they would lower the property values, destroy the area. Then they would go in and purchase these rich people, or the government would go in and purchase all the homes in that area and then rehab them and gentrify that area for super inexpensive and make the homes worth millions. And they would do that over and over and over. And she found all these other things out about hiding money and laundering money. So she tried to become a whistleblower.
I would say she's a whistleblower.
And she went to prison for that. So she worked for Goldman Sachs at the time. She left the Bush administration, went to work for Goldman Sachs, very high level, like financial person. And she went to prison. And when she got out of prison, she started teaching people how to use finances in your local community in a way that was more sane and localized.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. So then does she have YouTube videos, or how do you find her? The Dark Journalist has her on once in a while.
Yep, he's got her on. She has her own channel called Solari Report, Solari Report. And Solari Report, you have to pay for, but there's some free issues that you can review. And she teaches you about finances and like how to survive what's coming from a financial standpoint.
And then Clint 076 says, don't take copper, but we need copper. I think he was saying like the opposites discussion.
Oh, they tell you like copper is toxic, right?
Yeah. And silver, like can't have too much heavy metals, but.
And instead they put aluminum in everything. And guess what? Go look up aluminum safety data sheet and how toxic it is for the human body. Yet aluminum cans that you drink out of, aluminum cans that things are packaged in like beans, aluminum, if you can find, I challenge you to find cookware that doesn't have aluminum in it. Oh, this is stainless steel. Guess what? There's aluminum encapsulated inside the stainless steel.
And they don't have to tell you that, right?
They don't have to tell you that. And it's not, so it is almost everything we're using around us, including what they're spraying in the skies. It's aluminum, 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 aluminum. And your antiperspirant, it's aluminum. And right. So it's like,
well, and aluminum foil. How many, I mean, we've just grown up with that. Like we just use aluminum foil and don't even think about it. It's everywhere. Yeah.
Your bikes, your furniture, it's all aluminum. So anyway, the stars have always been in the same place, which means they are a map to our realm that we live in the matrix. And therefore, astrological signs and events are very meaningful for what happens on this planet / matrix, because they've always been in that same place, and we can use them as guideposts for all future events. That doesn't mean we can predict what event is going to happen, but we can predict the energies around that time period and better be prepared for what could happen.
Okay.
So that's where we were leading into Lavette, who's an alchemist, but she does sidereal astrology. There's multiple types of astrology. Most people in the Western world are familiar with tropical astrology. And that's like your horoscope, and you pick up any astrology book, it's going to be tropical astrology. Then there's that if you were to actually look up in the sky at the exact time of year, they say your constellation is there in the sun as it rises. That's not what is true. So sidereal astrology is like, when I look up in the sky, this is what is actually in the sky. So that's sidereal astrology, is it's supposedly truer to what is actually occurring at the time of year when they say it is. And it changes some people's signs for their birthday. They might think that they're Aquarius, and they might be something different based on sidereal astrology.
Okay.
And she uses that to predict events and to show how past events have occurred. Now, I think Lavette is very knowledgeable, but she's very dark, and she gets a little like, the world is ending and this matrix we're in is awful. And she's kind of like defeatist. So we've kind of stopped following her, although we learned a lot from Lavette.
Yeah. She's given us a lot of like the foundation of what we know. And so like, I really want to just talk about the rainbow, the inverted rainbow. Cause I just drove by one today, and I was like, I think it was like at a church, or I don't know, some AA group or something. And it was like the inverted rainbow. And I was like, oh.
So we're talking about the rainbow flag.
Yeah.
Specifically,
or just the rainbow, because everybody always has red on top. And go ahead. I'll let you just.
Well, the rainbow symbolism. So if you see like, for LGBTQ, there's the rainbow symbolism, and for the flag, or, anyone that just wants to be like, we accept everyone, right? And they've got this rainbow flag. Well, first of all, like, you could just put up a white sign with black lettering and say, we accept everyone. Like, who cares that it has to be this rainbow? You're actually like now segregating a group of people that only are the people that identify with that. So that aside, the rainbow symbolism on the flags and on the shirts and everything else is inverted. So think about the chakra color system. What's the base root earth chakra? Red. Then what's the next chakra? The sexual chakra, orange. So that's at the bottom. But if you look at the rainbow flags and symbolism, those chakras are at the top of all the rainbow flags that you're going to see. We call that inverted, because what we're trying to do on this matrix is mirror heaven, not mimic heaven, mirror heaven. So the mirror of the rainbow would be the opposite. And when you take the chakra system and you drive people to subconsciously, through the symbolism of the rainbow, want to strive for the red and the orange and the yellow, those are the base chakras. Not that they're unimportant, but by putting them on top, you're driving everyone to know that the most important thing in the world is sexualization of our culture and base desires. Being comfortable is the highest thing that we can strive for. Being sexually comfortable and satisfied is the highest level we can drive ourselves to. That's the inverted rainbow symbolism. Instead of putting the etheric colors on top, that we're trying to ascend our base desires through the chakra system into the higher spiritual centers. We've inverted that, and subconsciously and subliminally, we're putting the message to people that your base desires are what you should be striving for.
So tell people what Confucius said.
So Confucius has a famous quote, if you believe he was a real person, and said this quote, which is a great quote, which is, signs and symbols rule the world, not words and laws. That means words and laws, we all think, are the highest level. Oh my God, it's a law. I can't go against the law. I couldn't possibly do this thing, because if it's the law, that's the highest thing possible. But just because it's a law doesn't mean everyone just unconsciously follows it. They have to know, they have to be told, they have to be taught. If you put a symbol or a sign into a logo, let's say a company's logo, or into a movie, your subconscious recognizes that faster and changes your physiology, your breathing rate, your heart rate, your thoughts. They all converge and change on the symbolism. Therefore, symbolism rules the world, and those that know the symbolism control the masses.
Pick on Nike for a minute. Like, what would you analyze? Like, kind of do a little example, like analyze Nike in the.
Well, Nike is the swoosh, which also can have wings, which is Mercury. So if you know the symbolism, you're like, oh, why did they make their symbol Mercury? Oh, because you can run really fast, and Mercury ran fast. Well, Mercury is the messenger. And there's like all these myths. If you start to understand the myths about the legends. So what are the myths? What's the mythology behind Mercury? And is that symbol of Mercury, that allegory of the god Mercury, is it good or bad? And what does it mean? And what are they pushing on you every time you see that symbol? Your subconscious recognizes the symbol, the archetype of that symbol is recognized by your subconscious, which changes your physiology, gives you thoughts in your mind that are designed by that symbol to bubble up. And by putting that symbol everywhere and making it desirable to you, it anchors that even more, and you strive for that. I want that pair of Nikes. And in my day, it was like the Air Jordans, right? That was the thing you strove for, and that symbol became everything. So the symbolism around you is chosen very consciously for your subconscious to be programmed. And when you understand the mythologies and the alchemical symbology, you can start to decode what is being placed all around you and how it is making you react between the colors, the shapes, and the symbols.
So that
not necessarily the words. The word might say exit.
Yeah.
But the color that they use for the word exit and the way that they design the box that it's in a rectangle. Everyone can see an exit sign. It's not in a circle. It's not in a triangle.
Oh.
It's always in a rectangle. By doing it, just because it says the word exit and we know what exit means, our subconscious is being told a different story.
What is it?
I don't know. I'm not going to tell you. You got to do your own research. Why is it in a rectangle and why is it red?
What? Why is it? You're not going to say?
No.
Well, red's the lowest chakra. So you're in a box, or you're like contained and you're like, oh my God, you're stuck in the box of your lower chakra.
Again, like what you're doing is you're starting to decode the symbolism that's been placed all around us that most people gloss over. They never think about, well, why is the exit sign always a rectangle and red? Why would that be? Why did they choose that color and shape? That's what I want people to start recognizing, and you start to deprogram yourself and become immune to the programming by doing these things.
Okay, so if I were to be hearing this information and I'd be like, oh my God, I have to learn all this stuff. And I know like we kind of, like we talk about that with Lavette, and Lavette says, you guys need to learn all this. You have to go back and read all the ancient books and I don't think that that's necessary, because that's a lot of content and it seems like unnecessary, right? So don't freak out, you guys. Like this is coming to you for the first time, perhaps, and it's not. I mean, it's a big deal, but it's coming into your awareness, right? But what would be like the place you would go then to go, okay, well, I just want to dip my toes in this and see what this is about and see like what have I been programmed by? Like, what would you say? Like, where would people go?
Easiest place to go is to go to Brighteon.com. You might want to put that in the chat, Brighteon. And go to Lavette. So I think it's Lavette 11 is her channel name. I'll put it in the chat.
How do you spell Brighteon?
I'll put it in the chat as well.
Oh, you can. Okay.
So you want to go to Brighteon and you want to look up 11. Now, again, Lavette is awesome, but dark. Also like she can get a little dark. She has a video and it's called Signs and Symbols, or it's called Symbolism 101. And it has the video you're looking for has the photo of Confucius that says signs and symbols rule the world, not laws and words.
And that's the video we showed at our Spirit of Nature retreat. Remember we did the hour class of that?
So you can spend an hour of your life and that video will start to open your eyes to like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I've seen this symbol my whole life. And I never knew that it was actually an ancient Greek god that means this. So like it will start to blow your mind and open your eyes on the symbolism contained all around you that is subconsciously programming you. And once you recognize the symbol for what it is, you can no longer be programmed by it.
Okay. So, and with all that, you guys, there is no good or bad, right? Like it's like what you see in it. And it's just like acknowledging and observing like, oh, this is the yin yang symbol, right? Like I understand what that means. I actually don't understand what that means entirely. So I'm not going to pretend. But
there's light in the darkness and there's darkness in the light, and everything dark has a light side, and you cannot have darkness without having light. If everything is light, there is no shadow, there's no darkness. If everything is dark, there's no light.
I know that part of it, but I didn't know if there's a different decode to it.
You could go to Decode Your Reality, and I'm sure he is broken down.
Okay. That's another channel. Okay. But I just want to say, like, just because the Nike swoosh has the messenger of Mercury on it, it doesn't mean that it's bad, right? It means that now you understand what they're trying to get you to have an urge for, or want, or program you. And it's not in a good or bad situation. It's observing.
That's where I think we want a lot of people to get to, is not us versus them, and evil versus good, and elite versus humanity, dark versus light. Like, these are primal forces that have to be here. And one of the ways to think about this is, like, as we awaken to the symbolism, we become less programmed by it, and therefore we allow ourselves to be open to more information and truer information that comes into our reality. And what we want everyone to get to the point of, including ourselves, is to get out of the us versus them mindset. And then there's not like some dark group of people trying to like kill off humanity and make us all dumb and enslave us. Sometimes it feels like that's happening, and sometimes that might be necessary to happen in order to become more spiritually ascendant.
Right.
If there wasn't these, everyone's got their own idea of the devil. Like, some people are like, oh my God, it's this guy, like his name starts with a B and it rhymes with shill, and his last name is Gates, and like he's the most evil person. Maybe that's one of the like angels in this world, that he's like, oh my God, I have to take on this role in this life. Like, this is going to be awful to cause this much suffering to people and make it so obvious. But if I've got to do that to wake all these people up and get them to ascend higher, and I'll do it. Like, those people have a role.
Is that the inversion again? I mean, we live in an inverted reality, right?
You live in an inverted reality where we give those people godlike powers, and we're like, I know you're not a doctor, but I'm going to believe everything you say medically. And that's like, the inversion is, that's not really, it's the opposite. And then our version, if you're coming from our side and you're like, this person is the devil, it's like, that's what everyone's telling you to think. And maybe he's like the best person out there because he's taught us more about this thing people are putting in their bodies and why it's, not what they say it is, than anyone else could have possibly done, because of the things he said and the way he said them and the background he has.
Yeah. And has probably done more, I don't know, not good, but has been more prolific than any
anti-quacker.
any anti-quacker just spouting off going, look at all this right? Like somebody shouting at you going, but then you have Bill, you can't say his name.
Galahad. No, you can't.
Really?
Battle flag.
Really?
Especially type in the same messaging as like the action Jacksonation.
Yeah, right. Okay. Oh, what a crazy world we live in. You guys, we all chose to be here at this time. I think it's fascinating. Thaddeus and I just sit and eat popcorn and watch this Matrix reality go by. It's super fun, but we don't actually eat popcorn. But
if you were to live in paradise, there would be no incentive to wake up. There wouldn't be. Like, why would you want to evolve spiritually and wake up and like, oh my God, like we need to do something different. Like, this can't be all there is. Like, or like, this thing can't be real. Oh my God, this is a lie. This is a lie. This is a lie. What is true? Like, you don't wake up from having everything given to you. You really don't. And you don't wake up without some darkness. And without that darkness there, we wouldn't be in the spot that we're in, and we wouldn't know what we know. Like, would you give up? And Matt McKinley talks about this all the time. Would you go back 5 years from now if you could give up all the learning that you've done in the last 2 years? We've learned so much and we've come so far. Like, we needed this time, and this is exactly what was supposed to happen. And you don't have to like it, but it is seemingly necessary, because the more comfortable you are, the less incentive you have to like, I need to change right now.
Right. Okay. So follow up on the rainbow. So so Tara Allen says it's really inverted ? I never noticed. I love rainbows ever since I was little with the Wizard of Oz. So, I mean, we don't need to get emotional or reactionary to it, right? But just know, now that you know, like, it's fascinating. You can look at it as an observer and go, well, wait a minute. Is that in that movie? I would go back and rewatch the movie and see, like, is it inverted on the screen, or is it correct? And then whenever you see a sign in somebody's yard or whatever, and you know that, like what Thaddeus was saying, like, now you know, so that programming isn't working on you, and your lower chakra urges aren't going to work on you. You're going to go, no, I'm going to go home, meditate, instead of, I don't know, something lower chakra. Go eat, or go, like, do something of a power, because it's a power thing too. It's your solar plexus, or Manipura. But Lavette, I just want to interject one more time, Thaddeus. Lavette says, like, take a magnet that's a rainbow and just flip it upside down and, like, reprogram yourself with the purple on top. Do you want to add something more to that? And we're at 5:52. I don't mind going on a little bit longer. I do want to get to Patrick Flanagan. I know you're probably going to need dinner. But Patrick Flanagan is a top priority. I do want to talk about Hunza water and vegan cats still.
So, no, I was just, the rainbow is supposed to be a reflection of as above, so below. So if it's a mirror image, you want to show the image that you're striving for, not the image that you're trying to move away from. So you want to mirror moving up through the chakra system and not moving down through the chakra system.
Okay.
And so the symbolism you put around you subconsciously programs you. And so you want symbols around you that bring you up. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Yeah. And so, like, you guys will learn that. And Lavette's very, like, dramatic. She's like, this is the symbolism you want to see. And it's the phi thing. And what else was it? The inverted
It's
rainbow?
the Aleph. So there's heaven and earth is the Aleph, and then the upside down V with the line through it, not the triangle, which is fire and ice. So anyway, there's a lot to go.
Yeah, go watch that video. It's only an hour. Like, instead of watching some stupid Hollywood bullshit, like, go watch that. It's really fun. And she gives you a really basic understanding, and her voice is super crazy. Yeah, when I first heard it, I was like, that is what's the dragon.
Sounds
lady.
Like a man.
Yeah, dragon lady you're listening to, but it's fascinating. And then look around you and see, like, what am I being programmed by? Is this symbol something? Or I don't know, is this symbol something? And I'm holding up a stamp and it has American flag on it. So there's all kinds of interesting things around that. We'll get to that at another podcast. But Patrick Flanagan, who is he? Why should we know him? What do you know about him? And give us the
so Dr. Patrick Flanagan was kind of almost the founder of the alternative movement, like woo movement in the world.
Really?
And he died at 75 in about, I think it was 2019 or so. So not too long ago. And when he was 7, he invented a missile defense detection system, and the Department of Defense bought it from him. Like, he is this supposed genius inventor. He's got these patents, and he invented these things. He worked for the Department of Defense and, like, the CIA when he was a teenager, because of just, like, these crazy things he could do with his mind in terms of inventing and designing things. Well, one of the things that he's really famous for are pyramids. Like, everyone knows there's, like, this pyramid shape has some sort of energetic property. And he was one of the main people to present that to the world. So he wrote a book called Pyramid Power back in the 70s. And it became a very famous book about, like, your razors stay sharper in a pyramid, and, like, food stays fresher in a pyramid. And, like, it creates this energy, this coalition of energy in this pyramidic shape that's unique. So that was kind of one of the first things that he was well known for. And then he invented a number of tools, and EMF blocking necklace that he's got out called the Sensor. And it's the latest one that you can buy is the Sensor 5, I think. They're like $600. They're really cool. They have all this geometry in them. Mm-hmm. So he's just like this crazy inventor. And he worked with someone in a research lab that was telling him about his idea on water. And there's been a number of people, if you ever, like, buy Bragg's liquid aminos or Bragg's apple cider vinegar, there's this guy, Dr. Bragg, And he was also one of these guys that studied water. And they all talk about Hunza water. Flanagan's mentor, who taught him about water, told him about Hunza water. Bragg talks about Hunza water and many others. And they're like, these Hunza people are so long lived. Like, what's the deal? We think it's the water. And that's what people.
And Hunza is in the Himalayas, right? Like that's.
Yeah, they're like in this like border between like India, China, Russia.
Oh, okay.
In these like this mountainous region. And people are always trying to identify like, what's the secret of like living really long and being super healthy? Everyone wants to know that. So Flanagan and others like decided it was the water. And it was the Hunza water. They called this the Hunza water. It's what keeps them healthy and young. And so the theory was like, there's something in the water. So like,
well, and Flanagan claimed he found the fountain of youth with that, right? I mean, that's what his Hunza, he was trying to replicate it because of that.
Yep. But he died at 75. So like, there's this thing of like, it could have been the fountain of youth and longevity, but you know, he wasn't 100 when he died. So then there's like,
I thought he had a weird way of dying.
Well, they claim that he died of falling down the stairs or he fell and there was an infection from the fall that he died of. So up until that point, like the videos of him, he looked super healthy and vibrant in his older age. So he claims that there were like his claim, people have all different claims. It's like low deuterium water and someone invented a low deuterium water. And then he claims that it was a special crystal colloid that was in the water that was doing it. So he spent like a decade recreating this crystal colloid that he could sell. He was like using it himself, and then he started giving it to friends. And then eventually he started selling it because so many people wanted it. So he created this colloid of silica. And a colloid is just like this suspension of a solid in a liquid. It's just a way of suspending it and connecting it together. Okay. But he claims that it allowed the silica crystal to have special properties to hydrate the cells of your body when you drink water with this colloid in it. And that hydration of your cells kept you from aging as fast. And it gave you way more energy. So his claim was like, I invented this colloid that mimics the Hunza water, and you put a little dropper of it into your water, and you now have the same benefit as the Hunza water.
He also claimed that he could sleep 2 hours a night and then have like tons of energy.
Correct.
In that video you sent me.
And the product's called Crystal Energy. You can buy it like online still. Even though he no longer is alive, you can still buy his Patrick Flanagan Crystal Energy droplets and put them in your water. Some? Yep. I before I even knew who Flanagan was, I bought some because I was just starting to like pick up on some of these things. And I was like, oh, this seems like I want to try it, but I didn't know anything about it. And I used it till it was gone and didn't really pay attention to it. So I don't have any. He has another product called Mega Hydrate that's also supposed to do something really similar, but increase energy and longevity and health by just putting these little things in your water. And it's based on this concept of Hunza water, these long-lived, healthy people. So yeah, no affiliation with any of that stuff. I might try it again someday. I think I bought a bottle of it way back when, like 10 years ago, I bought a bottle of it and it was like $12 and now it's like $75 for a bottle of it.
Really? I remember when we first met, you had some and you brought it over and I was like, what is this? Like, I don't know what's this guy all about? What the hell is he putting in my water? So would people think like snake oil? I don't know, like what, it's just water. Like, why would it be any different?
Yeah, so I'm not like any kind of expert on Patrick Flanagan. I read his biography and I found it fascinating. I think it's well worth anyone reading like stories about Patrick Flanagan. Like he is a fascinating person and like super smart. But I'm not an expert on that product. I only used it once without much attention paid to it. So I think I would.
Maybe we should try it again.
I would like to try it again with intention and see if I actually notice something. Yes.
We could add it to our Urine.
Good. I think your Urine is perfect as is. I would add it to my water.
Oh, okay. I would agree with that. What about he had a cat and the cat was vegetarian? What's that all about? So
Patrick Flanagan is like Dr. Bragg. If you read some of the biography on Bragg, I read a book by Bragg called like The Secret of Water. And then Flanagan has his own book on water called The Elixir of Life or something like that. And they both wrote their books on water and had really similar ideas. They came to the conclusion, like you should drink distilled water and they both came to the same conclusion, Bragg and Flanagan, after writing their books on water, that that the human diet should be living vegan foods, never dead foods, never cooked foods, and never animal foods. Again, that's not where we are. That's not necessarily something that we're practicing, but it's interesting that they both came to that same conclusion.
Yeah.
They both have water books. They both were in super great health, and they looked amazing while they were alive. And so Flanagan has this story where he claims like his cats, he created these pyramids, and you can just create them out of like metal or cardboard or wood. It doesn't matter what you create them out of. They have the same energetic properties.
Doesn't have to be the right dimension.
Has to be the right angles.
Angles. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the important thing.
Okay.
So he created these pyramids, and his cats were like sleeping in them. They loved sleeping in the pyramid. And his cat, after sleeping in the pyramid, he claims became vegan. Like it wouldn't eat meat. And he would like give it this like vegan food and sprinkle yeast extract on top of it, and the cat would freak out over it. It would like love it, and it would never eat meat again. Now, he didn't finish the story and tell people like the cat lived a really long time and was super healthy, so that's still like a question in my mind. But his claim is like this carnivore, this like pure, what we think of as like it can only be a carnivore. Its digestive system is set up to be a carnivore. Its mouth is designed to be a carnivore. Became a vegetarian. Like,
but
I don't know.
Those flakes, what are those called? Nutritional flakes?
Nutritional yeast.
Yeast. That's what he would put on it?
Put on the cat's food. He put it on he gave it some kind of vegan food and put the nutritional yeast on the top of the food.
Did he use Paul Bragg's nutritional yeast?
Yeah, probably. They're probably the same person.
Probably. Oh my God. Excuse me. That's so funny. Okay. So would you ever want to try that?
Making my carnivorous pet vegan? No.
Why?
I mean, I might see if it would eat the thing. Like, I guess I could allow it to eat that, but like, I feel like I'm responsible for this animal, and everything I've been taught, of course, it could be wrong, right? Everything we know is wrong. Everything's the opposite. Everything we've been taught. Everything we've been taught are like these animals have to have like this protein, and me as the caretaker of this animal, I feel like, am I going to be making it sick and giving it like some sort of hip issue because I'm not giving it the nutrients it needs?
Right. Well, I would never let you do that to our little sage.
Well,
bear,
see, there you go.
But we could do it to.
We do it to the neighbor's cat.
We can do it to our cats. They're outside. They're like, I'm sure
the cats are just gonna like, if they're not wanting to be vegan, they'll just eat like a bird.
Yeah, that's true.
They live outdoors.
Right.
And then we're like harming the wildlife.
That's true. So if we do live in an inversion, then do our pets take care of us? Like we feed them, but they actually take care of us.
Well, that's the quantum conscience, Matt McKinley. His theory is like, we think we're like above the pet, and we have to like, we're here to take care of the pet. We get a pet because we love it, but we have to take care of it. And like, we're here for it. We're here to take care of that thing. But his contention is like, that pet is here for me. It's way more conscious and evolved than we are. And that pet is like helping us. It's here to help us. That's his theory.
I would 100% agree to that. I mean, that has absolutely happened to me with Sage, our little puppy. I used to be really afraid of dogs. I used to not like dogs. I was just like, I had my heart like so closed off to dog. And when Thaddeus came in my life, he had a dog, and I was like, great. But Copper, his dog, didn't have a very long life. After we met, it was on its like last.
He was 14.
Months. Yeah, it was last couple of months. But then we got a puppy a couple years ago, and Sage has like helped me open my heart. And now I look at other dogs and I'm like, oh, look at that dog. You guys like changed my lens. And just by that little being coming into our world, and he's just this magical dog boy, like bear. I don't even know how to explain it, but I totally get that. And I feel that. And I see that he's completely changed our life. Would you agree? He's changed mine. I want to know what you think.
Yeah.
It's a little more like nice.
He definitely changed your life, which has changed my life.
Oh, so it's a ripple effect. There you go.
Sage was up there like this little ascended being, just like, all right, I need to come in and help this woman open her heart and know why
Totally.
Dogs are okay.
Totally. Do you want to tell the story of when you that didn't look good. When you
Why don't you tell that story?
Yeah, but it's such a weird, like, I don't know, it's such a weird thing that happened. I had this really bad stomach ache, and this was before Sage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it had this bad stomach ache, you guys, and Thaddeus has done a bunch of I mean, I don't like, what kind of work have you done? You just learned a bunch of energy
Well,
work,
yeah,
basically?
I'm not like a shaman to the expertise of Washayla, and she's knows how to like remove entities, right? So one of the things that
Wait a
priests
Wait a minute. You have gifts, and
one of the things that like priests do and shamans and
yeah,
others is like remove entities. And whether you believe in entities or not, there's stuck energy in people. Call it whatever you want, right? So I, at the time, was really studying Drunvalo Melchizedek and was learning about the Merkaba. Merkaba, it's like an Egyptian term, body, mind, spirit, whatever you want to call it. And Merkaba, like in his viewpoint, is like this moving, energetic body, triangles and pyramids and inverted pyramids around your body, and you spin this living Merkaba vehicle around your body. And learning to work with your energetic body in the way that he teaches it, once you get deep enough to control the Merkaba and generate it around yourself, he teaches you in his method how to remove entities, or if you want to call it stuck energy, from other people. And so he's, in his opinion, it's like you've got to set up protections, and you spin the Merkaba, and then you call in divine help. In his case, he like uses Michelangelo, the angel, to help clear the energy and take the entity back to where it wants to be. It doesn't want to be with you, and it wants to go somewhere else, but it's usually afraid. So he teaches this method of getting rid of the entities. So like I used this method when my youngest son, had like ear infection after ear infection after antibiotic after ear infection. And I'm like, you know what?
Thaddeus did not give him antibiotics. Just FYI.
It's not like he was, whatever.
I just wanted to be clear, like we don't do that.
So he just kept having these ear infections. So I just asked him, I was like, do you think you might have an entity? And he's like, yeah. Like, do you want me to remove it? Yeah. So I did, like, and he's never had an ear infection since, and it's been like 2 years.
He was like 8, 9.
He was 9. He's 11 now. Yeah.
Yeah. And you guys, he would kick and scream, and he would yell. He'd be like, ah,
because
like,
his ear would hurt so bad.
His ears hurt so bad. And we'd all just be like, oh my God, we feel so bad for you. But it was like annoying. Like, poor little dude, just like yelling, it hurts, constantly. He did this, ear thing on him. And I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, he has never complained about it since. So fascinating.
So we did the same thing with Tomorrow.
So I had a stomach ache. I had a really bad stomach ache, and it was like chronic. And no matter what I did, my diet, I changed 10,000 things, and nothing helped. And I laid on my bed one night, and I just was like, you guys, I just started to surrender, and I put my hand like on my belly, and I felt like a heartbeat. Like, it was creepy and weird. And I was like, Thaddeus, I think there's if you're having cognitive dissonance right now, like, it's okay. I think there's something stuck in my like solar plexus area in my belly, like something. And he was like, really? And I'm like, do you think you could do like what you did with Hunter to my belly? So I'll let you finish the story.
Well, so yeah.
Were you just like in another land, or like you're daydreaming? Were you daydreaming out the window?
So I had to work through the process of setting everything up and creating the right space to do that work. Because, there's, depending on your mentality around it, like you don't want to remove these entities and have them then attached to something else, or that energy, and move it into your own body and take that on yourself.
Yeah.
So part of like people that do massage and energy work, like and shamanic work, you have to learn how to protect yourself and the space and direct the energy out, or entities out in a safe way. So I kind of set that space up, and then like when you do this kind of work, like, energetically, you get visions of what you're pulling out. And supposedly, like, part of the process is you communicate with that energy or that entity during the process. And like when I did, it was like almost looked like this Chewbacca type character that I was like pulling. I was like, that's kind of weird. Like, I don't know why that kind of vision came to me, but I described that to Tomorrow as like what I experienced when I like pulled this energy or entity out and like sent it back home.
Yeah. So, but he was like, it was like furry and it had like kind of a long body, but it was like, did it have one eye or two eyes, or how did that go?
Yeah, two eyes, but you couldn't really see the eyes. They were kind of like covered, and it was like dark brown. And anyway, yeah.
And then what, about 2 months later, this boy comes into our life. Oh, can you see it?
Yep.
People on YouTube can see it. But Sage, our puppy, comes into our world, and he's like, I don't know if you guys on the podcast you can't see him, but go to our Instagram or YouTube channel, you can find lots of images of our puppy, and he's like this little furry brown entity, this being. So I don't know, Thaddeus told me that, and I was like, and it was after we got the puppy. You didn't even tell, did you tell me like what it looked like?
I don't know if I told you what it looked like right away.
Yeah.
But like the image of what I pulled out is almost like the image of the dog that came into our life, which is kind of crazy.
It's so weird. Just if you didn't think we were weird before this conversation, like, let's go. Okay, so he's brought up that term Merkaba, and you guys have probably heard that, but recently we just heard it in another way. America. How do you say it? You say it.
Amuraka.
Amuraka.
America, or Amuraka. So the ka and the ra, Merkaba, these terminologies are Egyptian. And like ka is like an energetic spiritual body, and like the ba might be your like physical body, and Ra being the sun god, ancient sun god. So you start seeing these terms like Merkaba, Amu, Mu is the moon, Ra is the sun, so moon, sun, sun and moon, Amu Ra Ka, the Ka body. Again, it's all built into that name. And supposedly there's accounts of the Spanish explorers in South America before it was called the Americas, when it was called the West Indies or whatever you wanted to call it. They were in South America and met natives from what we now call North America, and they called themselves Americos. So it's almost like this name for where we live existed in a different way than history tells us.
Of course it is. And not to mention the Washington Monument is a giant Osiris dick in Washington, D.C.
That's kind of random.
No, it's Egyptian.
There's a giant penis in Washington, D.C.
It is. Everybody goes there and they're like, oh, look at the Washington Monument. Why is it like that? Like, why would they put that there?
Why would they put an Egyptian obelisk in the reflecting pool of the United States?
Which is Osiris.
His cut off penis is what the obelisk represents, and there's no debating that. You can look up any book about Osiris or about obelisk and look up what it means, and it always means the severed penis of Osiris.
And also the Suez Canal spells Suez backwards. Like there's so many fun like little
Zeus.
Zeus. Why is the Suez Canal the Zeus Canal? Like there's so much
just
stuff.
Things that's been right in front of your face and you just never looked at some of these things.
But I've never heard the Amuraka thing, and I thought that was really interesting. Okay, so I think we've covered everything on our list. Are you ready for dinner? Anybody else have any other questions for Thaddeus? He is here to answer anything. We'll stay on for just a little bit longer. I don't see anybody typing in.
We lag a bit on YouTube, but also
it's okay.
I think, we will leave this up and you can put questions in the comments, and
if you're watching the replay.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think we should end this.
Okay. So if there's anything else you want to end with, like a big idea or a thought or inspiration, or no pressure.
I presented some really big ideas in this podcast. And honestly, like the thing, like, I don't know where you all are at listening to this, but the black sun being internet Ethernet cable into our matrix, blazing with so much heat and light from the information content that's blasting through that cable to our realm. That blows my mind to this day. That is so crazy to think about, and seems like it just seems true to me. It feels right, as like we're moving in the right direction of what that thing is up there. And I guess what I would leave us with is just stay open to the ideas that are resonating with you, and never try to wake anyone else up, because they are on their own journey. Everyone, as Fortune says, is an ascending master, and let them ascend at their pace. Let everyone awaken their selves and open their aperture at the pace that they want to.
Yeah, love that. That's such a great great thought. And we don't need to judge, right? We don't need to say good or bad and all that stuff. Like, just more love, more peace, more unity. Share your knowledge. If somebody wants to listen, share this video. Actually, I wore my pendant. Do you want to tell people where to find out more information and a little bit about this and our store? Let's just do that real quick. And Jackson just jumped on. He said, hey, what's happening? Fellow primals. he must have missed the beginning.
Go back and listen to the beginning, Jackson.
Yeah, you mean fellow Atlanteans / primals, or neither, or all of the above?
Fellow evolving humans, evolving spiritually.
Yeah.
So we do have a store. We've got two. The easiest one to navigate is gamingarmor.net. The one that we're known by is primalhacker.com. And, in this crazy world, like, there's a lot of frequencies coming at us, and building up your own energy field is really important. And you can do that with meditation and spiritual work and food and breath work. And you can also supplement with pendants. So, Tomorrow's wearing this pendant. People ask us all the time about, like, what kind of pendant are you wearing these days to just help with all these frequencies? And so, like, for years, we're just like, we're not going to go there. But we did get some that give off negative ions. That's like when you stand on the ground and you get these beneficial electrons. Those are negative ions that you're absorbing. So these pendants give off negative ions, and they strengthen your energetic field to protect yourself from the frequencies that are, embedding themselves into our environment, like 5G and 4G all around us, these microwave frequencies. So we do have those, and there's like a super special deal on gamingarmor.net. They're like $12.99, and that's free shipping. So depending on when you listen to this, if we have stock left, we're doing like this really special deal to get people to try them out. And there's a lot of other awesome stuff on that store, like protecting yourself from blue light at night helps you the next day to do your breath work and your spiritual work, because you're not so tired and you've got all that melatonin around, which allows you to decode the reality. The melatonin is the liquid crystal information that your body gives you to decode the reality we're in. It's pure information, and you lose that information when you see blue light at night. So get yourself a pair of blue light blocking glasses.
Yeah, that's actually really good point. And also, Thaddeus, we have some new products. We have beanies that are Faraday cages. We have baseball hats. What else do you have?
Those are the two major things. We've got like,
do you have any sweatshirts?
Yep. We've got EMF blocking hoodie sweatshirts on there. We've got the beanies that are EMF blocking. And I tell you what, like, when 5G hits, like, everyone's going to be looking for these things. Better to get them now to be ready. But honestly, like, protecting yourself from harmful frequencies and then learning how to transmute and use alchemy to rearrange the frequencies all around you to be healing is also part of the work.
These are some of the glasses that we have. These are quartz. Mine are probably dirty, but
can't tell
on the podcast. I always do that. I always forget.
We're on the podcast. So she's showing you a pair of the bamboo frame blue light blocking glasses that
these are the quartz
we created.
Right. And do we have a discount code for my pool party podcast people?
Tomorrow 20.
I thought it was Heidi 20.
It's tomorrow 20. Heidi 20 is for Earth and Moon grounding mats.
Oh, I was wondering why you chose that. You just wrote, okay, we'll talk about that. Tomorrow, so I can give everybody that discount code.
Yep.
Tomorrow 20. There you go. Jackson says, get them now before inflation hits. I love my EMF sweatshirt and my blue blocking glasses. Of course, Jackson says that. He's my solar panel salesman.
Inflation has it. Like we could have got those EMF sweatshirts for like $90 last year, and now they're like $180 or something. I mean, we're already seeing things go up quite a bit.
Jackson, you're the best. All right, you guys, if anybody has any other questions, put it in the chat below. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Thaddeus was here to blow our minds, and job well done. Thanks, babe. Coming on.
Always a pleasure.
All right. Love you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Have a good night.